Config 2025 just wrapped, and wow, the energy around the announcements this year was really something.
Yeah, you could feel it. Live from San Francisco, heading to London soon, and was it over 100 watch parties globally?
Yeah, Friends of Figma watch parties all over. The community was definitely tuned in. And they dropped a ton of news, some really significant new capabilities that look set to, change things up.
Absolutely. And today, our mission is pretty straightforward. We've got the keynote transcript, the source material you shared, and we're going to dig into the most important bits.
Think of this as your shortcut. We'll get you up to speed on the big updates without you having to wade through hours of video.
Exactly. Cut through the noise, understand the impact. That's the goal.
So setting the scene a bit, Dylan Field kicked things off, talked about Figma's reach, the new language support, Spanish, Korean, follow Portuguese, and now Brazilian Portuguese in the UI.
Right. But what really jumped out, I think, was the pace. He mentioned 56 features shipped just since the start of 2025.
That's a lot. It really is.
It is. And they made a point of saying that even with all these new features, they're still focused on core performance and quality, which is good to hear.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Did they give any specifics on that?
Yeah, some interesting stats, like average file size is up 18%. Files are getting bigger, more complex. Makes sense.
Sure.
But load times for the slowest 1% of files, down by 33%.
Okay, that's significant because that's where you really feel it, right? When things grind to a halt.
Exactly. They mention optimizing large files, better progressive loading for prototypes and pages, and a big one, a rewrite of the design systems architecture coming next year.
What's the goal there? Faster updates.
Much faster instance updating, especially if you're dealing with huge component libraries. It's all about that foundational principle, getting the tool out of your way so you can actually work.
Right. And this ties into that bigger picture Dylan painted about design's role changing. He said something like, design isn't just a step anymore.
It is now the process itself.
Yeah.
That stuck with me.
It's about curiosity, asking what if, obsessing over the little things, chasing a feeling.
Pushing what's possible. And his point was, in a world where AI makes building easier, the design part, the craft, the quality, that unique viewpoint that actually becomes more important, not less.
So the aim of all these new tools is to help you get from that initial idea to a real product much faster. Explore more.
And the scale of the announcements reflects that. They
Right.
basically said they're going from 4 products to 8.
Doubling the portfolio. Wow. Figma Design, FigJam, Dev Mode, Slides. What are the new ones?
Okay, so the big new areas are Grid, Sites, Make, and Buzz. Plus, a huge update to Figure Design itself, which they're calling Draw.
Right, let's dive into the first one then.
Yeah.
Layout. Feels fundamental.
Totally. Giorgio Cavilla introduced this. He had this great analogy calling layout the dark matter of design.
Ah, I like that. The unseen force holding everything together.
Exactly. You don't always see the grid, but it's there. From print to web with CSS Grid, it's foundational. He even mentioned learning to break the grid, but, the structure is still underneath.
And the problem in Figma has been trying to make those 2D grid layouts using auto layout, right? Lots of nesting.
Yeah, those nasty nestings, as they called them, makes files really hard to manage sometimes, hard to understand what's going on.
So the big reveal is a new grid option right inside auto layout.
Yep, just a toggle in the Properties panel. Choose Grid. It defaults to 2x2, but you can easily type in, say, 8 columns, 4 rows. Adjust the gaps right there.
And it looks super intuitive in the demo. Items just slot in, fill the space, want something to span 2 columns, just drag the edge.
Right, and if you move an item, other things just reflow automatically. That's huge for quickly trying out different arrangements.
And you still have control, like fixing column widths.
Oh yeah, individual columns or rows can be auto or fixed values, and you can still do absolute positioning inside the grid. Hold down Control, place something wherever you need it, like that little bird overlay they showed.
They showed a calendar example. Those are always tricky layouts.
Exactly. Grid makes that kind of thing much more straightforward. Plus, they showed the improved AI replace content, populating the dates automatically, which was neat. And you can nest grids inside other grids or mix grid with regular auto layout.
The Kodo website examples really drove it home. Bento boxes, logo walls, things overlapping but still structured.
Deliberately breaking the grid visually, yeah. It handles a lot of common web patterns really elegantly.
And the dev mode integration looked promising, mapping directly to CSS grid properties.
Yeah, grid template columns, gap, grid column span. It looks like a much cleaner handoff for developers. Helps bridge that gap.
So this new grid auto layout capability is rolling out when?
later today, actually, in Figma design. And it's also fundamental to the next big product they announced.
Which is websites.
Huh?
Building websites directly in Figma. People have been asking for this forever. The mythical publish button.
Yeah. Dylan mentioned seeing tweets from 5 years ago asking for this, and Tom Genitasio set the stage talking about his 30 years building websites, mentioning tools like Macau from way back, this idea of drawing code.
So Figma Sites is their answer, taking a design and making it live.
Pretty much. The idea is to go from your existing Figma design to a live responsive site quickly.
How does that work in practice? Do you just face your design?
You start by pasting a frame into the site's editor. A key part is how it handles responsiveness. You add breakpoints, tablet, mobile, and it adapts your design automatically as a starting point.
Okay, but what if I need to tweak the mobile version? Does it mess up the desktop?
That's the clever bit. If you edit something on the main breakpoint, like the headline text, it updates everywhere using multi-edit. But if you resize an image just for mobile, or change padding just for that view, that change stays local to that breakpoint. That makes sense. That flexibility is key. And does it work with my existing design system, components, libraries?
Yes, absolutely. You access your Figma libraries. Component sets work really well. You can automatically swap variants for different breakpoints if you've set them up that way.
Like a horizontal card becoming a vertical one on mobile?
Exactly. And your prototype links between pages just work within sites, too.
What about interactions, like hover states? Do I need variants for everything?
So they introduced something new here called preset interactions. It's a simpler way to add common web effects, hovers, parallax, things like that, without building variants.
Oh, interesting. Like the button hover they showed.
Yeah, the button got bigger, had a little bounce, just a few clicks to set up. And crucially, the preview you see is real HTML and CSS, fully responsive. They mentioned other presets too, like draggable, marquee, typewriter effect.
So it's actually generating code, not just faking it in a prototype. That's the core idea, getting from design to live code quickly. They showed some alpha user examples, a conference site, a tool for migrating read.cv profiles, templates from Play Studio.
And availability.
Figma Sites is rolling out in beta today for folks on a full seat on a paid plan. Starter plan users will get it soon. They did note that once it's out of beta, there might be costs for hosting and bandwidth, which is standard for site builders.
Makes sense. And they tease some future stuff for sites too.
Yeah, 2 big things coming soon. First, an integrated CMS.
Content management system.
Yeah.
Like for blogs or portfolio sites.
Exactly. Think managing blog posts, case studies, team members. They showed a dedicated CMS view for creating collections, defining fields, title, image, body text, etc., and managing all that content separately from the design.
That sounds huge for collaboration, bringing in marketers or writers without them needing to touch the design canvas directly.
Totally. And then you use Connect mode back on the canvas to link those CMS fields to your design layers. Connect the title field to the headline text layer, cover image to the image placeholder.
And then it just pulls the content in automatically.
Yep. You can cycle through different CMS entries, different blog posts, for example, right there on the canvas to see how they look. And there's even an inline editor for quick text tweaks directly on the design. Streamlines things massively.
Okay, CMS is one big piece. What was the other upcoming feature?
Code layers. This is for when you need interactions or functionality that's just too complex for visual design tools. Think like a working calculator embedded in the site, or really custom data visualizations.
Right, stuff that needs actual code.
So the idea is you select some design elements and hit Make Code from Design.
And it spits out.
In the demo, it generated structured React and Tailwind CSS code based on the design layers. You get a live preview of the code running, and you can actually edit the code right there, tweak animations, import libraries, use Figma hooks.
Wow, okay, that's a serious integration between design and code happening right inside Figma.
It really is. So yeah, grid for layout, sites for publishing with CMS and code layers coming. What was next?
Next up was AI. Another new product, Figma Make. They framed this around that Brett Victor quote about ideas dying because they're too hard to prototype or explore.
Right. The goal here is to take an idea, maybe just a static design, and use AI prompts to turn it into a working, coded prototype really fast. Go beyond just imagining it. Actually experience it.
How does the AI understand the design? Is it just looking at a picture?
No, that's the key. When you paste a design frame into Make, it gets the actual structure, the layers, the metadata. It's not just pixels. So the language model, they mentioned Claude 27, understands the context.
Okay, that makes a difference. They showed a bunch of examples, right?
Yeah.
Seemed pretty varied.
Yeah, really diverse. Simple stuff like making a static CD player design interactive, making the CD spin.
The earworm demo, yeah.
Oh, right. But also more complex things like taking a cycling app design and visualizing real ride data on it, turning it into a living prototype.
Or that Maven Clinic example, taking a mobile design, prompting it into a desktop version, and hooking it up to real APIs for a working map search.
Yeah, showing how it can handle real data and different form factors. They also mentioned internal uses, like visualizing the new grid feature itself, but then they showed the really out there stuff.
The raising the ceiling example.
Exactly. Playing with shaders, complex animations, exploring 3D directly in Figma, creating little game environments.
And that hand tracking demo. Controlling the interface with your hand gestures, that felt pretty futuristic.
It really did. It shows the potential to prototype experiences way beyond typical screen interactions.
And Make integrates with sites.
Yeah, you can work in a split view, design in sites, maybe generate some React code, then bring it into Make to add that interactive layer via prompting. It keeps a history of your prompts, too.
And if the AI doesn't get it quite right,
They showed refinement tools. Point and Edit lets you directly tweak things on the canvas, size, color, whatever. And Point and Prompt lets you select a specific element and give a targeted instruction like make just the CD spin more 3D.
and it's collaborative, since it's in Figma.
Yep, built for teams.
Availability for Make.
Rolling out over the next few weeks to everyone on a full seat, beta is free with usage limits, and it'll become a paid product later. The big idea is just accelerating exploration, unlocking prototypes you couldn't easily build before. Makes sense. Okay, next product. This one seemed focused on a very common, maybe slightly painful workflow, marketing assets.
Ah, yes, Figma Buzz. They talked about how millions of marketing assets are already made in Figma design, but collaborating with the non-designers who need them, that could be tricky.
Right. The designer ends up making endless tiny tweaks to copy or swapping logos 50 times. Damien and Lauren's presentation really highlighted that pain point marketers feeling scared to break things, designers bogged down in production work.
So Buzz is designed specifically for that.
Exactly. Purpose-built for marketing assets and branded content. The interface looks familiar, like Figma design, but it's streamlined. Easier access to brand libraries, templates. It's meant to feel less intimidating for marketer or content creator.
So someone could grab a social media template?
Yep. Work across multiple sizes or channels at once. Edit content either right on the canvas or using a simpler panel interface. They showed some nice touches, like when you swap an image, it automatically applies the template styling or filters, like making Braden's photo black and white instantly.
Using variants within templates looked useful too, for easy creative options.
Yeah, swapping background patterns or layouts quickly, and you can see the whole campaign laid out in grid view. But the real killer feature, the one Lauren said spoke her language as a marketer, was bulk create.
Bulk create, what's that do?
You upload a spreadsheet, a CSV file with all your content variations, maybe event names, dates, speaker photos for a conference.
Okay.
Then you map the columns in your spreadsheet to the layers in your design template. Event name maps to the headline text, speaker photo maps to the image placeholder, and so on.
And then?
Hit go, and Buzz automatically generates all the variations, like 25 events times 3 social media sizes. Boom, 75 assets created in seconds.
Whoa, okay, that's a game changer for campaign production.
Huge time saver. So Buzz is rolling out in beta today to all users. It'll be part of the full in dev seats. And significantly, they're introducing a new seat type later this year, the content seat.
A content seat. Who's that for?
It's for those collaborators who primarily contribute content, people working in Buzz, adding content to the site's CMS when that launches, using future content tools. It also includes FigJam and Slides access.
So it's a lower-cost option for marketers, writers, stakeholders.
Exactly. Makes Figma more accessible for the broader team, frees up designers. Seems like a smart move to expand their user base.
Definitely. Okay, so that covers the new products. But they didn't forget about the core, right?
Yep.
Figma design itself got some love.
A lot of love. This was about raising the ceiling in the core editor, addressing things people have wanted for years, and tackling limitations from the original Vector Network Foundation.
I remember vector networks being revolutionary, but yeah, having some quirks.
For sure. So they've done a fundamental rewrite of the core vector engine. You'll see a new toggle, where the dev mode switch usually is, that flips you into Figma Draw mode.
And draw mode isn't just a rename, it unlocks new stuff.
A lot of new stuff.
Yeah.
They said this rewrite enabled 22 new features and improvements focused on vector editing and illustration. The Draw UI is slightly different to bigger layer previews, new tools, sliders. geared towards visual work.
Okay, hit me with some highlights. What are the big new creative tools?
Well, first, just core vector editing is better. You can edit multiple shapes at once now, finally. And there's a lasso selection tool for grabbing specific points easily.
Lasso.
Yes.
Okay, what else? More drawing-focused things.
Definitely. A shape builder tool, like you find in Illustrator, for easily combining and subtracting shapes. They showed a pasta illustration example, radial repeat for non-destructive circular patterns, and text on path, finally.
Text on path. Wow. Okay, those are some major additions. What about effects?
A couple of cool ones. A non-destructive texture effect, you can add paper grain, noise, etc., and still edit the shape or texture later. And progressive blur, which gives you gradient control over blurs, so no more sharp edges unless you want them. Great for UI effects like scroll fades.
Nice. More stylistic control.
And more natural drawing tools. Actual brush strokes and a brush tool for freehand work with different brush styles. Plus something called dynamic stroke, which uses code to add wiggle or variation to lines for a hand-drawn feel.
Like the paper airplane example.
Exactly. And pattern fills are way better now. They're linked to a source layer, so they update automatically, and they're much more performant than duplicating tons of shapes. No more CPU death, as they put it.
Huh. Good. Anything else major?
The big one that's coming soon in about a month or two is variable width stroke. Manually adjusting stroke thickness along a path, that's huge for illustration. Pressure sensitivity is coming for that too. And a smaller but handy thing, a temporary rotation origin point.
Okay, so draw mode is basically a supercharged version of the vector tools we already had, plus a whole lot more.
Pretty much. It's a massive upgrade. They showed how it all works with existing stuff like color variables for dark mode illustrations. The reaction they got from testers was apparently, wait, you can do that in Figma now.
And when is all this draw stuff available?
Everything except variable width stroke is available today. It's a huge feature drop all at once. Really opens up what you can create visually right inside Figma. More craft, more expression. Lets you unflatten your designs, as they said.
Okay, let's try to wrap our heads around this. We got Grid for layout, Sites for web publishing, Make for AI prototyping, Buzz for marketing content, and Draw, supercharging the core editor.
Grid, Sites, Make, Buzz, Draw. Yep, doubled the product portfolio from 4 to 8. That's a lot to announce in one go. Clearly, a ton of work went into this.
And the overarching theme, coming back to Dylan Field's opening, is enabling you, the user, to get from idea to product much, much faster.
Right. They made that comparison 10 years ago. Designing in the browser felt radical. Now it's normal. The suggestion is that things like AI prototyping or integrated code might feel cutting edge now, but they'll likely become standard practice.
And importantly, they emphasize that this future isn't predetermined. It's shaped by the people actually using these tools.
Yeah, they spoke directly to the community, including you listening, calling designers people who are wired to think further, think deeper, who push to make good great, saying that it's this community that will really figure out what's possible with all this new power.
So maybe a final thought for you to chew on. With this incredible range of new tools, from the structure of Grid and Sites to the freeform creativity in Draw, and the almost limitless exploration potential of Make, how might this fundamentally change your process, how you collaborate, or even just the kinds of ambitious ideas you now feel you could actually bring to life?